Just give it 1 second. It says setting up your webinar for live. Okay. Okay, we are live with Stan Stalniker. This is Steve Good from the Coin Chat. We are live at Devcon 4. This is absolutely awesome. Stan, how are you today?
Very well, Steve. How are you?
Good, 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 good. Great to have you. So
Thanks.
look, I mean, you're right there at Devcon.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's been a great couple of days.
Hang on 1 second. I'm getting some feedback on myself. So just let me close a window here. Okay, that should be okay now. Good. Okay, yeah. So tell me what's going on at Devcon 4. This is really, really cool. So you're there, you're listening to people that are part of the Ethereum community. There's been a lot of talk about where Ethereum is going, speed of network, next releases. What are you hearing on the ground live, at Devcon, over the last day or so that you've been there?
Well, it's been a very intense couple of days because there's so many exciting projects that are either in the market or hitting the ground here that are taking the Ethereum protocol and really moving it to the next level. And then because it's a dev conference, it's really the people who are actually doing the buildle. So, the BUIDL versus the HODL. And really the people like making it happen in terms of the core tech. So, I think it's interesting to be here because first of all, you get to meet other developers who are working on really cool projects, but fundamentally you sort of get a sense of like maybe what the future is going to be and what kind of problems need to be solved for the network to be successful.
Yeah. Have you heard a lot of talk about, them speeding up the networks? I know that's been a big topic this whole year. I mean, really the last year and a half is about, I've heard, previous where Vitalik Buterin has been saying, we're going to make this as fast as Visa. Is that still like hot topic on the ground being at the event?
Yeah, I think that there are really two major words that matter right now and that everybody's talking about, and they're kind of looking for the solutions for, and then maybe some people are trying to build for. One is scalability, and the pathway to scalability is sharding. So sharding is when you basically are taking the network and kind of creating all these shards of the network and letting
pieces of pieces to accelerate the whole process. A bit the way that Google search works, actually, for those who don't know that they literally break it down into little tiny components to make the search so quick.
Yeah, and so what's interesting is that they've been working on like how to do simultaneous computation. So this is like the big thing with something called Casper, that there's a guy named Vlad Zamfir who actually spent time with us last summer at the Hub Culture Innovation Campus in Bermuda. And at the time he was talking about Casper as being this kind of somewhat far away solution that would enable proof of stake versus proof of work. So, in the side conversation from scalability is this idea about how do you actually achieve main consensus. And so, and we can get into that in a second because that's actually really important. There are a couple of big developments out of Devcon around that.
Yeah, tell us. It'd be great to hear what's going on. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but we'll get to that in a second because the key thing with sharding is scalability. And so as they get to simultaneous sharding, so that you essentially have a messaging system that can allow essentially cross conversation between shards before it gets to the main net. And that's a pretty interesting concept. And they were demoing some versions of that. And it's based on this idea of potentially pushing some levels in the decision making in the decision tree to the very last moment, so that you can get to some levels of kind of, you could almost call it like theoretical communication between the shards.
Wow,
it's pretty cool, but it's not quite there yet, right? And it needs a little bit more time in the oven before it's going to pop out. But I'd say that Casper has been one of the big topics that everybody's talking about in terms of its capability to potentially solve the scalability issue of Ethereum. And really Casper is about a move towards proof of stake from proof of work, which is a very different economic incentive and economic model for the entire network. So that actually has huge implications for Ethereum at large.
And all of this thing, so one of the things that you're interestingly hinting at, although you haven't said it, but that this kind of level of an upgrade to the network would require some sort of a hard fork, although not to say that it requires the coin to split into two coins, because Ethereum has a history of consensus around a hard fork, which is just an upgrade in this case because everyone agrees. Do you get the sense that people are kind of the opinion that this kind of hard fork is a necessity and it's just going to happen? Are they talking hard fork in that sense at all, or it's just an assumed upgrade and that's it and we just carry on?
I think the jury's still out. I think there are
Okay.
people who actually have a very strong reason for wanting to maintain the proof of work model because it's more simple than proof of stake. Proof of stake
Yeah.
factor is more complicated, and some people are like, if it's not that broke, maybe you don't have to fix it. And
Yeah.
then there's now a mysterious new consensus protocol that is being rumored that has come out of the United States, and I don't think I can say which university, but I spent some time with the people behind a new mysterious third consensus protocol that is different from proof of work and different from proof of stake. And it's being talked about here. And I think there's at least one presentation about it, but I don't know how much they're saying because
Okay.
they haven't even released a white paper because they're keeping it so under wraps because the early work that they have done has been copied by the Chinese. So they're a little bit worried about having the work, sort of taken and iterated on before they're ready for prime time.
Yeah.
And I don't know how far away that will be, but I'd say the code word is Ava.
Interesting. Okay, so we're going to have to keep an eye on that one then. That's very cool. Now, there's another reason, of course, you're at Devcon because your company or your project is called can't even say it now, Hub Culture, right?
Right.
And Hub Culture, which is probably one of the earliest crypto projects out there that runs with the Ven coin. And I'll let you talk more about that. But one of the things you're there to announce is the fact that you're moving to mainnet with Ethereum and part of the ERC20 environment, right?
Yeah,
So
that's absolutely right. We actually just went live with our first Ven on the Ethereum mainnet about an hour ago, which is kind of cool. So we're really excited
fantastic.
about that. We've been working on it
Congratulations. That's
for a long
very,
time.
very cool.
Yeah, we're happy about that. We are still working on withdrawals, but just to give you a little bit of background and then
Sure.
understand
Yeah.
how this like,
Well,
fits
tell
into.
everybody a little bit about Hub Culture too, because not a lot of our listeners would necessarily know who you are, although, or what, or subscribers, whatever.
Yeah,
But
I mean, we're kind of we've been a little bit behind the scenes in a lot of the blockchain story, but we were very early in the digital currency story. So Hub Culture is one of the longest running private social networks on the internet. It was founded in 2002, and we operate a network of locations around the world called hub pavilions or campuses or spaces. And the entire economy of Hub Culture runs on Ven, which is a digital currency that we launched in 2007. So we were
right.
2 years before essentially the blockchain like initiative, so to speak, as a cultural force, and very like early in the field of asset-backed digital currency. So, the Ven is highly stable and very secure and green because it's backed partially by carbon as well as a mix of other currencies and commodities. So this asset backing makes it very, very stable. And it also makes it like a very different type of asset from an Ethereum or a Bitcoin because it's fundamentally asset backed. So we're not just issuing it out and then hoping that the value is going to go up or down and then being able to trade off that volatility.
So
It's
you
very
could
much,
say you were the original STO, couldn't you?
well, I mean, we wouldn't say an STO because it's not a security. It's definitely a utility.
Right.
And we're actually selling that as a standalone, digital asset. And then you can use that digital asset across our social network, which has tens of thousands of members and dozens of locations and thousands of goods and services that you can purchase. We
Right.
were moving into the financial markets in 2013 and 14, and then we had to sort of pull back a little bit because of the real issues around regulatory compliance. And that's the main reason you have not seen Ven operating on the blockchain until now. But we've
Right.
recently been able to move forward on the regulatory side, which has given us the window to be able to push Ven onto new protocols. And so the first protocol that is now going live is Ven on Ethereum on an ERC20 token, and it's going to be closely followed by Hyperledger. And then we have integrations with Ripple and other protocols coming down the pipe over the next few months. But Ethereum is essentially the first blockchain that will be able to host Ven and to be able
Very,
to.
very cool. And do you
Yeah.
have plans to also, move the coin onto any of the exchanges and actually be publicly traded? Or are you going to leave it as an internal private coin?
No, it's the reason we're pushing it onto ERC20 is to enable the integration of Ven onto other exchanges. And one of the major exchanges that we're looking at is Ultra, which is our own crypto exchange that we launched in May. And
Okay.
Ultra is a system for tokenized assets. And what it does is it allows us to tokenize a wide range of assets. So we started with Ultra Carbon, which is a fully asset-backed carbon token in May. Well, we launched the exchange in June, trading crypto. And then in June, we launched Ultra Carbon. And then in September, we announced Ultra Fiat. So we have Ultra US dollars, Ultra Euro, Ultra Korean Won, Renminbi, AE,
Wow.
Hong Kong dollars. So essentially, we're doing about a dozen tokenized fiat currencies that exist.
As stable coins effectively for the market to be able to trade and things. That's very cool.
Yeah, tokenized ultra fiat. And then we're about to release Ultra Origin, which is a land token. And then we have other ones coming down the pipe. Art Basel will be doing Ultra Art, which is a series of tokenized art projects. So essentially, Ultra is a system for tokenized assets, and Ven is the base pair that can trade a lot of these Ultra assets back through to the rest of the crypto markets. So getting the regulatory clearance for Ven was the first step, because that's hugely important for us. And then beyond that step, to be able to move Ven through Ultra assets and crypto assets is really kind of the goal. And that's one of the reasons why the ERC20 integration is so handy for us, because it's going to provide new ways to use Ven. And we have some really cool stuff coming down the pipe that will be basically be new use cases and new advanced reasons for sort of holding and utilizing Ven that go beyond the core social network where it's
anything you want to hint at so that you can give our listeners a little reason to check out the hub culture and see what you guys are doing, where you're headed? I have to ask the cheeky question, you know that.
yeah, no, that's great. I mean, you know, the thing is that like we've been experimenting a lot with object-oriented identities for a while, and with Hub ID, which is our human identity system. And so really the future we think is going to be, you know, we imagine hub culture is evolving into a kind of virtual state, and we're launching a series of new locations that we call Hub Culture Embassy that a member would be able to access and use similar to the way that they've used pavilions or other locations in the past. But with Hub Culture Embassy will be a kind of resolute digital identity that you can carry around with you. And that digital identity will provide pretty cool like benefits that maybe aren't being well provided by the state. That's kind of the long-term plan.
Very cool.
Yeah. So you can imagine. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, you could just imagine, like, if you think about a lot of the things that we don't feel are working very well right now, there's an opportunity for collaborative groups of people to be able to band together to provide those services to each other. So that can include insurance, for instance, or that can include, you know, pensions. That can include a lot of things like tokenized ownership or fractional ownership of assets that, you know, it's just hard for people to get access to right now if they don't have, you know, those things already, right? So I think that there's a big opportunity for being able to provide people that kind of certainty by being part of a really amazing community.
Absolutely. So now this kind of relates to, you know, a bit now about you guys at Ether. I'm going to bring the two together for a minute here, because what interests me is the fact that you got into crypto really from the beginning. You're probably one of the few people I've met who's really seen it all from the beginning, with the rise of Bitcoin, the fall somewhat of Bitcoin and Ether for that matter. You know, where do you think we are now in that kind of ecosystem or world in terms of where's the coins going? Are this bear market's been, of course, unbearable, I guess one could say. What's your feeling right now about where this is going? Are we going to come out of this on the other side feeling good? You've weathered a lot of these, you know, crypto storms and watched it happen. So I just want to get your take as to, you know, one, what's the sentiment in the Devcon 4 about it? And generally, what's your sentiment as a long-term participant who's been through all this for a while?
Well, I mean, I definitely think that the future is decentralized. The future is very blockchain oriented, but not exclusively blockchain oriented, because there's a lot of scalability issues around blockchains that just don't really make sense or aren't totally needed. But the thing is that like it's actually ushering in a whole new layer of intelligence. And so where I actually get really excited is how this applies to AI. We have an AI project called Zeek.ai that is linking together blockchain-oriented data, immutable data, to Ven as a digital currency. And we think that that's actually going to be very, very powerful over time. And I'm actually most concerned or thinking about AI. Like that's pretty much all I worry about right now is like what is the, say, 5 to 10 year impact of AI and how AI is developing. And
okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, fundamentally AI is, I think it's going to be, depending on where you are, it's either going to be a national issue, like say a communist Chinese national AI, or perhaps like an Islamic AI. The Saudi Arabians are talking about building an Islamic AI. And then in the US, you'll have essentially corporate AI. So a Facebook, an Apple, an Amazon, general intelligence, and those will serve the needs of those companies. So what I'm most interested in is how we use blockchain plus AI to build, say, human-centered systems that maybe help to protect some of our most cherished fundamental values like democracy or freedom of speech or freedom of thought even. So for me, that's kind of the only thing that actually matters in all of this. Whether the price goes up or down, fundamentally, I think the price of the market is absolutely only going one way over the long term. It's just that it's being splintered into many different types of activities and assets. And so,
Right.
Even with that said, I do think that when you look at the individual market cap of like a Bitcoin or an Ethereum, which are really the two largest players in the market, it might seem a bit overblown, but there are so many things coming into the market that long term kind of can shore up those values. So, the really big thing that's happening right now is the new blockchain space race. So we invested in a company called SpaceBit in January, and SpaceBit is seeking to tokenize space assets. And that company,
like asteroids and comets and stuff.
Yeah, but like more simply, like I think the first thing will be a moon mission, right? Like you could potentially,
very cool. Yeah.
Or like nanosatellites. The reason we invested in that company is we want to put Venn on nanosatellites in space. That's definitely, I would say would happen within the next 18 to 24 months. So you could hold a space.
What's the reason for having a Venn in space? What is that doing for us with a nanosatellite?
Yeah, I mean, Venn on a nanosite in space has like some potentially unique like jurisdiction kind of advantages. I mean, there's a lot of rules around how space jurisdiction works, but fundamentally, there are like opportunities to be able to put assets, digital assets, onto nanosats and then hold them off planet. And I don't think that's very far away. But then there's also the idea that you could use Venn for funding for, say, a small space mission, or to put a satellite up that could go to the backside of the moon and, say, gather photography data and then be able to resell that back on Earth, right? So there are lots of like emerging use cases, and I think the thing that really demonstrates this is that Joe Lubin, who is the head of Consensus, and Consensus has consistently been right at the forefront of every single play across the Ethereum ecosystem.
For sure, absolutely.
Yeah, and so they just bought Planetary Resources, and that was announced yesterday. We know that company from Davos, and Planetary Resources was looking at 4 years ago, they were looking at traditional ways to fund space exploration alongside Blue Origin and Elon Musk's SpaceX.
Right.
But now if you start to tokenize these missions or tokenize projects with SpaceBit, and I'm sure Planetary Resources will now pivot directly into the Ethereum blockchain. So that actually provides a really interesting use case, because over time, like space is the only place where the outsized valuations for crypto can actually find a home. Because fundamentally, if there's a space play for Ethereum and a space play for Venn, that means that it's like a 20 to 40 year horizon on the value. And the value return on that is so potentially large that it actually can justify today's valuations. There's nothing else on Earth that can actually justify some of these level of valuations for some of these crypto assets based on like the market of 50 basis points on a payment system, right?
No, exactly right. Yeah. So we definitely need to have a longer term horizon view of where we're going. And you're absolutely right. I mean, I've looked at tons of ICOs. Like, so what? Let's see something that has more long term value. And thinking about the longer.
You invest in today for space tomorrow. And we realized this a while ago, and that's why we invested in SpaceBit. And we're really excited about being a partner on that company and just watching it grow. And I think over the next couple of years, you now have two crypto space players. You have Planetary Resources and you have SpaceBit. And those two companies are going to be able to do things because they're going to tokenize assets that have such a long ramp of return that who knows what will happen. The other thing that I think is really interesting is Lexon. So Lexon is another company that we're advising and I'm very involved with, and they're building a system and a blockchain that's really focused around legal. And the idea to be able to fully execute smart contracts and legal contracts contracts with the people who write them, which are lawyers. So right now, if you want to have a lawyer write a smart contract on Ethereum, yeah, good luck, right? But Lexon
Yeah,
seeks
because the contracts have a lot of variables that you wouldn't necessarily think of. I've been through the process of just putting smart contracts together with developers, and they'll start asking me questions, and I'm like, what are my choices? It just goes in all these different directions of use cases I wouldn't have normally thought of, and I suppose that would probably be true for lawyers, that some of the use cases they're used to may not necessarily work, but other ones that they've never thought of that may be more clever are certainly there within the smart contract model. So
and you just want to get to like self-executing reliability, right? So
yeah,
Lexon,
absolutely.
Lexon seeks to take the uncertainty out of the gap between the smart contract from a crypto standpoint and the contract from a legal standpoint, and to kind of link those two things together.
Yeah.
So that's going to be very interesting to watch Lexon and how that develops. I think there's a lot of early interest in that. There's
So you've
so many
got a
companies
lot going on within Hub culture, that's for sure. I mean, how big is your team to manage all this? Because it sounds like you guys have got a lot of stuff going on there.
Well, remember, we're a community with 60,000 members. And so
Right.
most of
So
what
the
we
members
do,
are all contributing and helping you to build this.
yeah, I mean, everybody contributes in their own way, but some people are bigger, better contributors than others, but everybody has a role and a place in the community. And
Yeah.
I think that's where we fundamentally are, I think, at a very strong position to be around for a long time, because our goal is, really to be the world's first virtual state. And, we've been active in locations. We've done 40 locations around the world over the last 12 years. We do great stuff, amazing people in the community. And we're flexible because we have this technology base that's been built over many years.
Yeah.
And, so adding blockchain to the mix is a little bit like the way, a big company or a small company today would seek to integrate blockchain. And, we've decided that we're not a protocol player, like we're not on the base layer trying to be a protocol, but we have a lot of dApps. That was the other thing I was going to mention. Beyond scalability was what I call dAppability, which
Well,
is
we need dAppability for sure, because there's just too many people that are just building things that we did an episode recently on the top 7 dApps, and I mean, they were okay, but we need some really good dApps. So I like the term dAppability. If you don't mind, I'm going to start using that.
Yeah. So we need applications and dAppability, right?
Applications and dAppability, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of talk about doing that, but at the end of the day, like I was talking to some people that are working on journalism on the blockchain. This is something I've personally been very involved in. It's a little bit like not everybody can be consensus and literally have your finger in every pie, which consensus really does. It's amazing how adept they are at being widespread. They're almost like an incubator, right, in terms of being able to ideas and then interface and weave those ideas and projects together into a kind of tapestry. And that's also the way it's going, because that's what AI does, right? So this is why AI is so hugely important, because the more you connect your AI like horizontally across things instead of vertically in an industry, the more intelligent and valuable it becomes. And so you almost have to be thinking like across this really wide spectrum of things to be really relevant, because otherwise you can get completely eclipsed by somebody else who's doing something else.
Has AI come up as a topic at all within the Ethereum Devcon 4 conference, or has it been sort of muted?
I think that people are. I have not heard a lot about it, to be honest, but that may be just people I've been talking to. I think that a lot of the focus right now is on scalability and dAppability.
Yeah, I mean, because AI is certainly something I'm seeing more and more of across the crypto communities in general. So that's why I was just wondering whether or not it's coming up with Ether. But I suppose, as you say, we need the scalability and we need the speed of their network, and we need it to evolve, and we need to clarify, certainly from my point, proof of work, proof of stake, how they're going to speed the network up, how the sharding is going to work. All these other things need to be sort of addressed first before we can get to the next thing, because it's cart before the horse, as they say, right?
Yeah, and the other thing is, like, not everything, black is, when they say when you have a hammer, everything is a nail. So not everything has to be a blockchain solution for it to be.
No, absolutely right about that. Right. Yeah.
And so not everything about there's a lot of things about AI that like don't have anything to do with blockchain. So
listen, I got an email yesterday from some sort of a pseudo hedge fund, and he says, oh, I was reaching out to you because I want to do an ICO and because I want to raise 300,000 pounds. And I said, okay, but what's your blockchain solution? I mean, you can't just say I'm trying to raise 300,000 pounds to reinvest that into other ICOs. I mean, that's not an ICO.
Well,
That's
I mean, you can if you're EOS.
well,
That's
okay,
what
yeah, but this was not EOS. This was just a little kind of startup-y kind of company. So I was like, yeah, thanks, but thanks for contacting me. I think I'll mention it on the show.
Right. Well, you just did. They get you.
Yeah, I just didn't mention who it was, and I'll be respectful. But it was one of the most weirdest questions I probably had in crypto was, can I raise funds to go spend them? I like, no.
Well, I mean, but the answer is yes. I mean, the reality is like people are doing these things. One of the things that I think is about to happen is I think venture is actually going to come back into fashion, so to speak, because ICOs have died, especially in the US. Now everybody's talking about STOs, but then if you're doing an STO, you might as well just take equity. And instead of going through all the trouble of trying to do a public raise and get SEC clearance, if you're going to just give away equity, you might as well just go get venture or take private equity. And
well,
so I think you're going to see like a bit of a loop around back to that.
I've pretty much seen that already start in the last 3-4 months because I'm getting invited to more and more private investor roadshows where a broker or an event organizer is organizing 30 verified investors with 5 to 10 ICOs. And the typical requirement that I'm getting more and more of where they're saying, hey, have you got any hot ICOs that might want to do fundraising? And we're running an event. Do you want to invite any clients or any people The one requirement is we want them to be security-based projects, meaning equity and or STO tokens. So you're absolutely right. It's coming. I'm seeing more and more of it.
Yeah, I think it's coming back around. I feel like the ICO market is very dead right now. It's, you got to have an amazing project to get people's attention on the ICO market. And obviously,
thank God,
that's because it's down 75%.
Yeah, I mean, it's about time that we only focus on good projects instead of just throwing our money at the wind. But then again,
I don't know.
We saw all of that with the internet too. I mean, we saw all of this money being thrown at internet everything, including boo.com, which was basically this crazy clothing concept, which got turned into a book. But there wasn't any substance behind it. It was just taking money to take money.
Well, I think that there's a lot of people out there trying to do, I operate on the idea that most people are generally trying to do good, but they don't necessarily do a good job at being good always. And so, you have to be careful, and everything is buyer beware. But at the end of the day, like so many of these little projects and ideas get wrapped up into something else. Like I can't even tell you, like there were people that we saw at the Bermuda Innovation Sprint literally 2 weeks ago who had a project or an idea or a piece of IP that literally 2 weeks later in Prague, we're running into them again. We're like, oh, how's that going? And we're like, oh, we already sold it, and we're now opening this other company to do this other thing. And it's literally 2 weeks later. And so that's like how quick this world moves. And some of these things, we're talking like, Gmail killers. We're talking cybersecurity things. We're talking like massive, huge ideas. And the turnaround time where before something gets snapped up, merged, taken over, the developer team gets sacked, and the other one gets like, poached. I mean, it's crazy like how fast everything moves. So it's very frustrating because I find like if you want to work in this industry, and we're not crypto natives, like I've been talking a lot about this idea of crypto native, right? So if you're like a millennial, I heard somewhere that something like 25% of the Bitcoin volume in the last 6 months of 2017 was from people who were under the age of 18.
Really?
So, yeah. So and this scary. Is from like one of these like block verifiers. So it's not scary, but it just means that like young people are the people who are driving crypto, right? And so
I mean, I think that's understood anyway. It's definitely a young crowd. It's the millennials and the generation.
So if you're a college student or even a high school student, like this is sort of what you're growing up with, and this is the norm, and this is default, right? And for older people, like I'm now over the age of 20, so the So
don't let the few grays on my little, facial hairs throw you off by any means either.
Right. So we need a de-aging blockchain token sale. But the reality is like
anti-aging token that goes with the AI and goes into space. We need it all in one.
Yeah,
we can just come up with our own token right now.
It's coming soon. We can call it good token. But the reality is like this is the default for the new world. And I think that's like summarizing this Devcon. Devcon 0 was apparently 20 people in Berlin. and then there was Shanghai, and then somewhere else, and last year Cancun, I think, and now it's Prague. This is my first Devcon, but you know,
How many people are there roughly?
Oh, thousands. I think it was
Really?
like 2,000 or 3,000
Amazing.
people. Yeah,
Incredible.
I mean, so it's really just like grown,
Yeah.
right? And the Ethereum Foundation, I think, gets a lot of credit for being able to pull everything together and to make it work. And
For sure.
you know, but it is really developer heavy. So you know, you're kind of in the weeds on a lot of stuff that like the average person doesn't necessarily need to understand right now. But you're seeing the outlines of stuff that will be happening.
Yeah, and this is the typical, you start with technology, and with anything that we've ever seen, you know, and I've been in the tech industry a long time, and you always start with technology first, and eventually business people come in and they start to kind of work out what this technology does, and they start to, you know, create business terms that everyone can understand. And then they bring in marketing people that can market it, and UI developers who can make, you know, Etherscan look like a usable platform rather than something that's for techies. Because, you know, over time, all these things are going to transform for sure. And we're just at the, you know, we're at the beginnings of this whole industry sector, with everything being still very techy and very, you know, in many cases unusable. And that's why we need to daplify everything. There you go. That's my word now. So, and that's going to happen over time for sure. So
yeah, no, I mean, I think it is. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think the future is very bright for Ethereum. That goes without saying. But I think also the future for the industry is very bright. You know, the institutional money is on the way, and that's gonna be another level set. And we're going to see a new reality once institutional money comes in. There's a very big SEC announcement that's expected soon.
Coming out today or Monday. Yeah. So what do you think? What are they going to say? Are they going to give us a little thumbs up on an ETF for Bitcoin, or are they going to say we're waiting till 2019 to make a final decision?
I don't know. It's hard to say, right? I can't speak for the SEC, but I do know that.
No, but we can make a guess. You can make a bet.
Well, I mean, I think it's very telling what the Federal Reserve just did. So I was at a Fed meeting in September, and they have a community now that's focused on real-time payments. And in the September meeting in Chicago, the Fed announced RTGS, which is real-time gross settlement, basically 24/7 settlement for the USD. And the reality is like, you know, we have Ultra USD, like Gemini has something, Circle has something.
Right.
Mark my words, every major bank will have a digital dollar in the market by the end of 2019.
Really?
And yeah, I'm very convinced of that. And
okay, that's interesting.
The Fed itself has announced full-time digital, like, you know, settlement on RTGS by 2020. And so it's
interesting because Janet Yellen, who's the former Fed chairman, you know, she was just on the news yesterday saying that she's really like not a fan of Bitcoin at all, or this whole digital cryptocurrency stuff. So,
well, that's not Bitcoin, right? I mean, that's a very different thing.
No, I understand, but she was just generally opposed to it all. And then, of course, you had the IMF, 2 weeks ago, making, you know, equally.
Yeah, but remember, a tokenized digital dollar running on a blockchain is a very different thing from Bitcoin. It's not the same thing at all. It's very different from Ethereum.
Oh, absolutely, I understand that. It's just
we're talking pipes and rails, right?
Yeah, what I was alluding to is the fact that you get a lot of people who are equally misinformed, and they make these broad sweeping statements about digital currency and cryptos disrupting financial markets, while you and I are sitting here knowing that we're creating multiple stable coins for the same currency so that banks and businesses can operate and run. And that's nothing wrong with that. I mean, having it as a digital means for transport and spend, it makes a lot of sense.
Well, I mean, it's just more efficient, right? And a more efficient economy is probably a better economy.
Absolutely. Okay, so before we go, just do us a quick shout out to your companies and your URLs. We'll put them in the description down below in the channel as well. So they're out there. But you've got your hub culture and you've got your exchange. So just give us a quick rattle down of the URLs that you've got out there, or how do we find you and your project?
Well, we say join the community at hubculture.com, which is hubculture.com. You can get Ben and a Hub ID there, and you can interact with our AI, Zeek. And if you want to talk to the AI and help train it, it's an open-ended general intelligence system. You can go to zeek.ai, zeke.ai, or you can talk to it in any one of our websites. And then finally, ultra.exchange, which is our crypto exchange, trading a number of different crypto assets, and soon trading. You can access Ultra assets via Ultra, but you can't fully trade back to crypto between those assets. So there's still some regulatory kind of
hurdles.
Well, not hurdles, but we would say some regulatory, so tennis lines, tennis court boundaries.
Okay.
But that's evolving very quickly. And one of the limitations with Ultra is that we cannot yet accept U.S. citizens on Ultra. So if you're a U.S. citizen, don't bother. But worldwide, U.S. citizens can use and access Venn and Ultra assets through Hub Culture.
Fantastic. Stan, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on our first live ever episode, and no less than having it at Devcon for itself. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. And thank you to all of our listeners, subscribers who are tuned in either now or come and watch this later. Don't forget to give us a like, check out Stan's Hub Culture project, and to the moon. Until next time.
Yeah.